break whether or not they thought that this was done after they scored those two third period goals and started thinking about those flights to wherever. But those last 10 minutes, Flyers really turned things around. And again, they had chances. They had the 5-on-3 power play. They had the Farabee opportunity, and so they certainly had chances to be right there to tie it up. So that's saying a lot, being able to come back into a game like that. And again, there's not many moral victories in this league, but you can bet it's going to give them a little bit more energy going into tomorrow in Carolina than it would have been if this game had been 3, 4, 5-1.
Yeah, I mean, you get outshot in the game 34-19. And Carter does a good job keeping the door closed for the entirety of the first and about 17 minutes of the second. And then Toronto just becomes overwhelming at that point. They were overwhelming before that, but then they score the 4 goals in succession after the Flyers open the scoring in the first period. And Nylander gets that 4th goal, and you're going, okay, you kind of got run out of the building after, they finally were able to break the dam, but they come battling back. I mean, that goal in the third period by Nylander to make it 4-1 and scored at 11:39.
Yeah.
And then 22 seconds later, quick math tells me, Morgan Frost gets the goal. And then a minute 23 later, Joel Farabee gets the goal. And now all of a sudden it's a 1-goal game again. It's bananas.
Yeah. And it's, again, looking back at it, obviously Toronto, deserved to win the game overall, but, you kind of just feel a little bit bad for the Flyers from the standpoint of they played so well, really defensively, I thought. I mean, again, the Toronto goals in the second period, essentially 2 power play goals. One was 3 seconds after one ended. So, that got them in trouble there, taking the penalties. But, they didn't really have any defensive breakdowns, I thought. Maybe one that Carter kind of bailed them out of until the third period. And both of those goals were, again, situations where they got a little loosey-goosey defensively. One point, they ended up with 2D behind the net. And, and the second one, Nylander getting away from Travis Sanheim. So, those were the kind of straws that broke the camel's back, if you will, in terms of the goals that end up deciding the game. Again, that's exactly what they were trying not to do. But they unfortunately run into those, and it's just a little bit too much to come back from. But they were right there knocking on the door for that equalizer at the end. So that's good to see.
Yeah, and that resiliency is something that when you have more talent can pay dividends. It may not pay dividends now in some of these games where you come back and you get within one, you pull the goaltender. I mean, Farabee had a glorious opportunity to tie it up.
Goodness. And again, you've got to give, Scotesy said, you got to give credit to Austin Matthews, because you don't necessarily talk about his defensive play, but if he doesn't get that stick to Farabee, that's in the net, and there's no question about it. So it's just again, a good play on his part, and unfortunately, the Flyers just could not quite get that puck toward the net a little bit earlier.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's get to the BetRivers.com highlight reel. As I mentioned, the Flyers outshot 34-19, but they do open the scoring. It comes on their first shot of the game. They're on the power play here, and at 4:17 of the first, it's Tony DeAngelo who gets his 5th on the man advantage. Just the Flyer goals there, Mike. You hear me, Mike? Yeah, DeAngelo, the one-time blast. He's able to move into the top of the circles. Good puck movement here, a good zone entry. But none of it is kind of possible, Bri, if Carter Hart doesn't make that save on Mitch Marner on their PK.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what he's been doing all season long, is making big saves like that when he has to. And those are usually what results in the Flyers winning some games, is when he makes a couple of saves that he's not supposed to and is able to clean up a couple of mistakes on his defensive side. So that was a huge turn of events there, because, I mean, imagine if that had gone the other way, if Marner scores and the Flyers don't ever get a chance the other way. I mean, this game is a completely different result score-wise, and really also just morale-wise. It's, again, they'll take a little bit of feeling better about themselves, I think, out of this game because of the way it ended up. But that first goal that goes the other way, and this ends up being what, 5-6 nothing game, maybe 5-6-1. I mean, that's completely that's completely.
Yeah, and I will tell you that it is in a goalie's mentality and in his frontal lobe in a game that when he makes a big save in a big spot and the play goes the other way and it ends up in the back of the net, he's saying to himself, "That's a 2 for a goal, and I get an apple on it." I take one away at one end, and then we go right down the other end and score.
Yep.
That's something that swells a goalie's confidence even more, because the game is cumulative. It's about scoring more goals than you give up, and preventing them is just as important as getting them. So I will tell you that I'm sure that he felt pretty damn good about that stop, and not only that, but you stop Marner. I mean,
yeah. I mean, that's you're going into this game, and really the first big stop you make is against one of the big guns. Yeah, that's going to help you the rest of the way, and it's just going to go on as well. This is going to help the Flyers' confidence a lot more than a really lopsided loss obviously would have in terms of what some of the young guys have been doing and trying to keep up going on. I mean, Morgan Frost, another multi-point game here. I mean, it is going to help regardless of the outcome.
So 4 straight goals from the Toronto Maple Leafs, starting at 16:50 of the second. Kalle Järnkrok, Mitch Marner picks up a power play goal late in the period at 19:23. So the Flyers go into the room down 2-1, getting outshot decidedly in the game. Then starting the third period, just 33 seconds in, boom, it's 3-1. And then 11:39, William Nylander scores. How about his 20th goal of the year? 4-1 is the score at that point. But the Flyers get back to work. And at 12:01, I'm sure this was a good one for Morgan Frost. I'm sure this was very satisfying, even though they only got him within 2. It's Morgan Frost who's got the hot hand of late. He picks up his 7th goal of the season. They're still down 2, and still decent amount of game left. You got just under 8 minutes, 7:59 to go in the third period. But a minute 23 later, the Flyers get back within 1 when Joel Farabee picks up his 6th of the season. Yeah, Farabee there gets on the board. And again, Bry, that's all the Flyers would get. That's as close as they would get. But again, when you look at this score sheet, you look at some of outside of the first goal that the Flyers scored, where DeAngelo, assisted by Hayes and Van Riemsdyk, that's the upper level of age bracket points in this game. Although Tony DeAngelo did have another assist on the Frost goal, but Frost and Konechny gets an assist on that one as well. Konechny gets an assist on the Farabee goal, as does Morgan Frost. The under 25-year-olds again getting on the score sheet and ending up really contributing, not in just the way they play, but putting the team on the scoreboard.
Right, exactly, and that's what you want to see is these younger guys again jumping in, making some plays, and they all did that. I mean, Morgan Frost obviously gets the goal there, and he's got that contribution to speak of, and he's also got an assist. He's +2 in a game like this. I mean, believe it or not, but even though Owen Tippett didn't get on the score sheet, he did some of that as well. He had 3 shots on goal. He had 5 total attempts. He had a couple of opportunities where he was able to go to the net and try to do something. There's one specific one I can think of in the third period where he kind of burst off the wall and took it right out into the top of the crease almost before I think it was Giordano got a stick on it and got it off his stick. But just the fact that he's able to do that in a situation like that, in a setting like that, is good to see. That's the kind of play that he kind of got to the NHL on making that kind of thing. So it's very good to see that continues. And again, all of these guys are going to take this game away, and it's going to go in the notebook. It's going to go in the memory banks, and they're going to become better players from having competed. Really, again, the numbers would suggest they didn't compete hard, but they really did compete hard against a very, very stacked team here, and almost stole one from out from under.
Yeah, they really battled back, but ultimately end up losing by a goal, 4-3 the final. The Maple Leafs will head to Christmas break. The Flyers still got one more to go. That's coming up tomorrow in Carolina, and perhaps the first start of Samuel Ersson. Let's take our time out here on the postgame show, and we'll be back, break down this game further, look ahead to Carolina, maybe Sam Ersson getting his first start in the NHL. Played 18 games this year for the Phantoms. We're back after this on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.
Hang on.
All right, Bryce. So we'll go one more segment here. Everybody's getting behind the scenes.
I left the office here and didn't plug something back in.
Can't hear me. Can you hear me, Bry? Can you hear me? Will you tell Bry that that's what we're doing there, Mike?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Sounds good.
Okay, so the only thing, we'll come back after this next break and lead into Chuck, and then you can just run Chuck, and then when he says, thanks, Jason, happy holidays, then you can just go into the close, and that's it. So we can actually log off as soon as we start the interview. So, Mike, what time should we be out here to get that on at 5?
In case you can't tell on the stream, we're with a different situation today.
Okay, we'll go to like 58. Okay. How much time? All right. And we're back live. It is the post-game show as the Flyers fall against the Toronto Maple Leafs, a rare weekday hockey game. I was thinking about it, Brian. You mentioned before the game, I think Black Fridays were the only day. I think they had a Columbus Day game a couple of years ago. That was an afternoon game.
Yeah, and possibly, a Martin Luther King Day game. But I would say if you're considering Black Friday a holiday, which I think for a lot of people it unofficially is, I mean, this is as close to a non-holiday game, I think, as I've seen it this time of day for an NHL team. It's pretty typical. They do this a lot in the American Hockey League. They'll bring kids in from schools and stuff like that. But Toronto's the only team I know of that does it in the NHL. And so, it's a bit of a rare situation. But, given the circumstances, I think the Flyers will take it. The weather's awful up there. And they're going to get it. They're going to get, they'll be on the plane head to Pittsburgh or headed to Carolina before Carolina even starts their game in Pittsburgh. So, I think in the long run, they'll take the afternoon start here.
Yeah, it is pretty hideous out there, and this storm coming through is pretty wicked for sure. So the Flyers, like you mentioned, will be in Carolina tomorrow. They're going to wrap up their pre-Christmas portion of the schedule in Carolina against a team that, boy, they have been unbelievable of late. 9-0-1 in their last 10. They've jumped to the top spot in the Metropolitan Division. Now they're actually tied in points, but have played one less game than the New Jersey Devils. So it is really a team that's got it going. And when you're, like Coatsy mentioned at the end there, when you're facing a Rod Brindamore team, you're going to get an honest effort on the other side, and a team that has got some talent too. And Brent Burns there now, and they're getting some good goaltending. So they're a team that is going to be a handful without question, even though they're both teams are coming off a back-to-back.
They're always tough to play, just as a Rod Brindamore coach team, and they're always tough to play against in their own building. I mean, it's become a location where teams used to go in there and you wouldn't even feel like you necessarily had the other team had a home ice advantage. Sometimes you'd see teams go in there and you get a lot of folks from other cities that like your team that are there. It would almost feel like a home game sometimes. That's not really the case anymore. They've really kind of grabbed the attention of the folks around them, and the storm surge and everything like that has really made it more of a home ice advantage. So definitely kudos to them and whoever came up with all of that stuff. It's at the same time they've been able to add some players to this team to make it exciting to watch. I mean, Carolina obviously had the Stanley Cup championship in 2006, but after that point, there wasn't a whole lot exciting coming out of that market in terms of hockey. But they've added some pieces that really make it fun to watch that team play. And again, they're always tough to play against, given what their head coach puts behind them.
Yeah, I'm not sure who came up, if it was the owner, Tom Dundon, I think, that came up with the storm surge or do something fun, and he's really unconventional.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, they've had that team has always had a great marketing staff in place. If you recall, their Twitter account was one of the first to kind of start getting snarky.
Yeah, teams.
Yeah, they started to get in on that ahead of its time, and they were they've always, and it's the kind of thing in a market like that you kind of have to do, because it is a quote unquote non-traditional market, but you're also in a place where really college sports are the ruling party there. Football, basketball. I mean, that for a while there,
college basketball.
They were playing second fiddle to NC State just in terms of the dates that they got versus their basketball team. So, when you're in a situation like that, you've got to do things that that drive interest. You can't just rely on what the team's doing on the ice and what the regular media is doing as far as covering the team. You got to come up with ways to kind of make things interesting, and they have done a tremendous job of that there.
Yeah, create a buzz, and they've done it almost seems odd that a team coached by Rod Brindamore would have that happening. You'd think he'd be like a guy that'd be against it, but he understands the situation in the market. He won a cup there and has been there a very long time. And then the other, the quickest way to really like something is to have an outsider criticize it. When Don Cherry called him a bunch of jerks,
yeah,
and thought it was Bush League, that helped.
Look at Gritty, right? It's exactly how that ended up. So.
Yeah, as soon as somebody in Pittsburgh had something to say about him, it was zip it. That's our guy, right? And that's just the way it goes. So tomorrow could be the NHL day. I'm suspecting it's going to be the NHL debut of Sam Ersson, the 6'2", 176-pound goaltender who's taken in the 5th round, 143rd overall back in the 2018 draft. Right, he's only played 23 games in North America on the smaller ice. He played in Brynäs in the Swedish league for the last couple of years prior to coming over, and then also dealt with some injuries in the 21-22 season. Only played 5 games last year. He's gotten 18 so far this year. He's a guy that's seemingly has adjusted to that small ice. Not an easy thing to do. Posting a .910 save percentage and a 2.72 goals against average. He's looked sharp. He looked good in camp, and he looked good in the preseason. I know Torts and Kim Dillabaugh, the Flyers goaltending coach, really liked what they saw out of him, and perhaps we see an NHL debut tomorrow of some of this goaltending depth that the Flyers currently boast with Sandstrom, him, who knows about Fedotov in that situation. But you got Kolosov overseas and other Flyers goaltending prospects. It's an area of strength in the organization right now for a change.
Yeah, Samuel Harrison's a guy that is another one of these guys that is probably um, about 2 years behind where he would have been if COVID had never happened. He was a 2018 draft pick. He was, at the time of the draft, he was 19 years old, and he played another year in Sweden. That 2019-2020 season that ended in March for basically everybody. And then, European players, they were kind of stuck over there. There was nowhere to play here because, the junior leagues weren't running. The American Hockey League played, I mean, just random numbers of games depending on which team it was. I think the Phantoms played like 28 or something like that.
Yeah,
so there was
played
nowhere.
Like 7.
Yeah, there was nowhere to come over here. So he stayed there for another year. He got, and he's another one of those. He's another guy. We've talked about this before, that there were some guys who actually benefited maybe from the situation. Guys like Tyson Forrester, who got to play in the American Hockey League before he probably would have otherwise. Sandstrom stayed over there, and he played 42 games in the 2020-2021 season. And I would venture to guess that's probably more games than just about anybody played outside of the National Hockey League. Remember, the NHL only had, I think, a 56-game season that year. So, it was hard to come by in terms of games for guys that were playing in college or juniors or even in the American Hockey League. So he got 42 games in there, was able to continue to develop, and then he finally did come over for last season. And again, he gets an injury, and that limited him to just the 5 games last year. So, again, kind of a Morgan Frost type situation that we were talking about in the pregame show. So now with all that behind him, he comes out and he has a very impressive training camp. He looked very, very good in that. And now he might get a shot here at the NHL level.
Yeah, you saw him in rookie camp, and it was, wow, this guy's really, and you go, okay, but it's rookie camp, right?
Sure.
The NHL guys and the top players aren't in yet. Then camp comes in, and he keeps impressing, and then he impressed in his performances in preseason games and scrimmages, and he's picked it up in the regular season, kind of making up for some lost time and games that he did not wasn't able to get in because of that injury last year and only playing those 5 games. So I'm thinking we see Sam Urson tomorrow, and that'll be a compelling reason to enjoy that one as well. I mean, Carter's been great this year, but he does need a break as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So you let him break, give him the full week between games, Thursday to Thursday, and kind of go from there. I would deem today's workload significant for Carter Hart.
I would too, yeah. And again, with Zone travel and everything, I mean, they've got customs involved. Who knows how long you're going to be sitting on this plane? I don't know what the weather's doing in Toronto right now, but eventually it's going to turn to snow. Hopefully they get out of there before that. But there's no reason to put them through that kind of stress, I don't think, because again, Flyers aren't fighting and clawing for points right now. It's just a matter of this is a development year for this team. It's all this is at this point, and so he's with you. He didn't have to do any jockeying or sending Sandstrom down to get him up. He's just there. Let's give him the opportunity to see what he's got.
No doubt about it. All right, we're going to take one more break, and when we come back, Chuck Fletcher, I had a chance to catch up with him 2 days ago for Flyers Daily, and a very sweeping conversation regarding the team's direction, some players, prospects, evaluations, John Tortorella, the Kevin Hayes situation, how that moves forward, and much more. So you get a chance to hear that interview coming up. Let's thank a few people real quick, though, before they get out of the building. Let's start with Dan Fritz, who was on highlights tonight. Let's go with Mike Vito, our in-studio engineer, and Betsy Deming, our on-site engineer. And we'll be back. We'll deliver you Chuck Fletcher right after this on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. All right, so we'll come back and set that up. Hey, we're going to come back. I'll come back and tease into it. Yeah, we'll just set into it.
So what do we?
Yeah, that's perfect. Now? I had that.
Are we going to give Chuck to the streamers here, or are we? What are we doing? I don't even know.
Well, they can get them on Flyers Daily.
Okay, so we won't have that interview here, but you'll have them on Flyers Daily, and then you get to chat with Torts tomorrow too, right?
Yep, 12:30.
So some behind the scenes stuff.
Hockey and Hounds too.
Yep.
Do you have that stuff you can send me?
Actually, no, I don't. I better ask somebody about that before everybody gets too far away from here.
I'm talking to Smitty.
Actually, I do. I do have a.
Awesome.
I do have a Hockey and Hound. Yep. I can show everybody if you want.
Yeah.
Where to go? Give everybody a little bit of a preview here. Do you see a dog? Because I only see myself.
Oh yeah, he's a beauty.
That's Casper.
Back live as the Flyers go down against the Toronto Maple Leafs. They'll wrap up tomorrow before the Christmas break and be back on the 29th. So rest up, number one, Smitty, because we're coming back with a 10:30 at the Shark Tank. But a very late night game in San Jose. So it'll be a late night.
Well, that's the nature of the beast out there, is it not? It's just a matter of shifting your body clock there for that last week. Fortunately, it's usually a light week at the office, so it's not like we got to get up and get back in at 9 o'clock Eastern time the next day.
Yeah,
but,
no doubt.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's a tradition now, right? I mean, Flyers have been going out west at least since the early 90s at this time of year. So, it's always fun. It feels strange when they don't do it, to be honest. And there's only 3 games in that part of this trip, actually, because of the break in between. So, not as heavy a workload. Not too bad.
All right, so let's get into Chuck Fletcher. Cousins Corner is going to come up at the bottom of the hour. Stay tuned for that. But I had a chance to catch up with Chuck Fletcher for Flyers Daily, talk about a number of things about the team, its direction, and much more. So here's Flyers General Manager Chuck Fletcher. Chuck, how you doing?